Hi, everyone. What a wonderful good afternoon from wherever you are watching us from. And happy new month, this being the first Thursday of our live conversations. Today, we are going to talk about a sensitive topic um, dubbed eating disorders. Okay. And why I'm saying it's a sensitive topic is because a lot of the things that happen or go along with eating disorders are done secretly, covered with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And a lot more people than we think actually really struggle with eating disorders or with some form of eating. So we are going to look into that conversation today. And I'm happy to be having this conversation with a psychologist and nutritionist. What a wonderful and perfect combination to be doing this. I'm going to start with introductions. I'll follow my grid. And on this side, we have Lucy. Welcome. Thank you for giving us your time um, to pick from your brain and from all the wisdom that you bring into this panel. Kindly just introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Lucy Chege. I am a nutritionist. I advise on matters nutrition and health, and I'm also the founder of Nutrition Therapy by Lucy. I'm glad to be here.
Wow, thank you, Lucy. And we look forward to hearing about nutrition therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the other side of the panel, we have Kate Mudoni. Thank you so much for, taking the call to come and sit on this panel. And we are looking forward to learning a lot from you, I included. Kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kate Modoni. I'm a psychologist, and I'm delighted to be in this panel, and I'm looking forward to learning. Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys. As we begin into this conversation, I always like to ask my panelists just a real and a raw question. So allow me. We'll start with Lucy. Please tell us your favorite and worst food.
Sorry?
Your favorite food and worst food to eat.
Oh, my favorite. I think any sweet food is my favorite. I don't have that specific food.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yes,
Sweet tooth. Any
sweet.
food you don't
Yeah.
like at all?
I think I hate pumpkins.
Mhm. All right.
I think I hate them.
Mm, wow. I would say that, okay. All right. I hear you. As you grow older, you start appreciating some of these foods. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Lucy. Kate, how about you?
Wow. I love my favorite food. Okay, I love traditional meals, but I'd say a combination of some spicy liver, well
Mm-hmm.
done, and mokimo with some steamed vegetables. And
Um,
yeah, that really gets me going. And my worst food, aside from pumpkin, as Lucy mentioned, I mean, who really eats pumpkin? Um, I'd say omena. Don't throw stones. I don't like it. I don't like omena and pumpkin.
all right. And thank you, Kate, for that. I love how balanced your favorite food is. You should be the nutritionist here in
Oh,
this panel. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. My favorite food is anything that is sugary, spicy, fatty, just
oh.
anything that is just nice and melts in my mouth, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
And food that I don't like, I can't take the veggies that are slimy. Like when you go to do this, no, I cannot.
Mm.
Well, Thank you. Let's get into the conversation of eating disorders. I'm going to start with Kate. Um, Being on this panel as a professional and from your own experience and research, what is it that you've discovered about eating disorders?
So the most outstanding thing about eating disorders is that it's an illness. That's why it's dubbed as a disorder. What people need to get is that it's an illness. People literally take or rather overlook the sense of just eating 3 square meals or 4 or 5 meals and being contented, having a balanced meal. But in this case, the individuals experience disturbances, and it the eating literally causes them not to perform their day-to-day activities. They cannot be able to function physically, emotionally. It's interfered with. The emotions are interfered with, and the disturbances are really severe. You find that the person becomes apathetic. They don't have enthusiasm, or rather, they are too much into food. In the case of when we're going to look at the different types of eating disorders, and we normally have a Bible in psychology, we call it DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It has listed types, and there are like 8 types of eating disorders, stroke feeding disorders. So it's an illness, first and foremost, and the people experience extreme disturbances on their day-to-day lives because they cannot maybe regulate their intake of food.
Wow, thank you for that, Kate. And specifically just bringing the seriousness of this. Like, it's an illness. You just don't wake up and just decide that maybe I just it's more than that. It's more than I don't want to eat. It's more than I'm excited and I'm eating a lot. There's much more to eat. Sorry, Lucy. Tell what are eating disorders from your space, from your experience?
Gosh. I think it's an illness. It's on a higher rise. Many people are not realizing that we have an eating disorder because you find yourself obsessed with a certain food, but to you are just taking it that it's just my favorite food, but you have not realized that indeed you have a disorder and it's an eating disorder. So yes, it's on a higher rise. The binge, when you look at the statistics of obesity and overweight, indeed the eating disorders are on very high rise.
Wow, thank you. You guys have heard it from the nutritionist. Like statistically from her own experience, and looking at things, bringing things into perspective now, they are seeing a higher rise in eating disorders. And I love, Lucy, that you say that also a lot of people are not aware. They're not in the know that this is actually an eating disorder. And I would also like to add that by the time you're aware, it's probably because you experience it. What Kate also brought into this conversation, those debilitating effects, and you're feeling apathetic, and all your life, there's some form of dysfunctionality. Wow, thank you. And I really want to hear. Let me just go back to Lucy, from your space as well. Why do you think we have these cases are more today, or they're becoming, why are the reports higher? Why are the statistics higher today? What are some of the causes from your own experience?
Hello?
Hi, Lucy. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Right. I'm asking a question to you because you said that the eating disorders are more common than people actually think. And you also said that we have more and more people reporting eating disorders here. What are some of the reasons from your own clinical practice do you think are causing this number to escalate?
I think there are many factors, one of them being body shaming. I think everybody has experienced maybe body shaming, and also the preference of thinness. Like what will make a thinness to be beautiful. So everybody is struggling to have this body shape, the body weight. I think all this has contributed to it. And also look at our media, the exposure to media. It has greatly influenced the eating disorders.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Bringing in just the kind of exposure we have and the likeness that is brought about where body shaming is concerned, that being thin or having a certain body type is what beautiful is. And I can imagine how many people would want to move to that side because, I mean, let's be real, it's human nature. Everybody wants to be accepted and loved and admired, for one reason. That's like human nature. From a psychological perspective, Kate, what causes people to have eating disorders?
Okay, there's one thing that stands out in most mental disorders, and the mother of them all is genetics. When you're genetically predisposed, or rather your genes literally set you up. We say they set you up to having specific disorders. If you have a first generation relative, if maybe you are a parent, or rather you've been brought up by a parent who had exhibited eating disorders or had a case of eating disorders, as a child, you pick up some of these traits, and we call them modeling through observation. You find that maybe a case and example is maybe a mother who, or rather something that happens frequently at home. Maybe a mother is cooking and she has tasted the food in the kitchen, and by the time she's serving, she's full. And so when the children look at the mother all the time, they're like, why isn't mommy eating? I think I also want to skip the meal just like mommy is. They want to do this because their mother is an icon to them, is a model. So literally they're modeling. So that is one of the things that sets you up. You pick them up. Your genes predispose you. You pick them up. Observation. There's another thing, and then we have biological factors whereby the brain chemistry might change. You might have a rise in certain hormones. When you have a lot of insulin, when you have hormones working against you, you're bound to have eating disorders. Yeah.
Right.
And then family history, just like I've talked about. And then we also have dieting and starvation. What the environment literally is there, like what Lucy has talked about. The media, what the social construct is, the culture right now. Everyone is echoing a certain ideal body type, and everyone is trying to fit in and go with the mass. So those are some of the causes. And then we have the typical, or rather the culprit, stress. Stress without knowing makes people, or that puts people up to having a lot of disorders without their knowledge, especially subconsciously. You might have a lot of stress within your body, or rather within you, and your body will have to physically react towards your mental state. So you might find that you want to eat too much. There are others who say, people normally report, I feel so stressed, hata sisikii kukula. And then another one will be like, when I get stressed, I eat. So you find someone eating lots of ice cream, eating lots of sugary stuff, or their favorite food, without them knowing that they're slowly developing an eating disorder. So that sets them down.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kate, for that. Please just mute your channels when you're not talking, just to minimize the noise. But thank you. I really appreciate that. And two things stand. I will not repeat the other psychological part of it, but I'm just thinking, if somebody comes across this video or they are watching this video, I like that you brought in as well the social construct, how much influence that has. But I've thought of it on the other side of the coin, where people imagine or people think that junkie is a cool thing. So if you can have the pizzas and the KFCs and the ice cream and the sugary stuff, or even savory, like that's actually like a cooler thing to do. And I guess it just begins out of curiosity. And if you have those other underlying factors, like let's say you have now the genetic predisposition, then you will easily just uh, slip into that, into having an eating disorder. Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. I really like. And I don't know, did you guys know that also, as a practitioner myself, one of the things that has really surprised me is the rate of mortality for people with eating disorders. Yeah, as in, I think that coming to my attention is still really very mind blowing, seeing how serious this illness can be. That the mortality rate for eating disorders is highest as compared to other mental illnesses. Just imagine that, yeah. Then yet we just play around with this, or maybe we are walking around not knowing we have a disorder with a very high mortality. So I'm really glad that we are having this conversation with two experts. All right. Let's go to the most common. I want us to look at the most common. I know there are so many of them, but let's look at the most common eating disorders, and maybe what are some of the symptoms, maybe one or two symptoms. I know you told us, Kate, that there is a Bible for these things, but I want the person who is at home, who is watching this and wondering, do I have an eating disorder or not? What are some of those things they can be able to look out and pick out for? Yeah, Kate?
Hello. So we have, like I mentioned, we have, there are normally 8 in total, according to what is there. What the research that has been done has revealed that there are like 8 of them. But the most common, or rather the most types where people talk about, and they have been there, they are being echoed all over the media. We have the mother of them all, anorexia nervosa, anorexia. We have, let me just mention them, the types. We have binge eating, or binge or stroke purging, and then we have bulimia. And then something else that I would like to say is a bit common, but there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about it, is pica, P-I-C-A, pica disorder. And then maybe another culprit I can mention is, we call it avoidant or restrictive food intake disorder. So what cuts across, or rather each and every eating disorder is a bit different from the other. Like anorexia nervosa is typically characterized by low weight, whereby we find that the person literally, and the person does not want to eat, or is really cautious of the food that they're taking. They don't want to add weight, despite the fact that they're extremely underweight. It's characterized by being extremely underweight. When you look at the body mass index, the BMI that normally scientists use, you might be maybe a 40-year-old male, you are 6'4", and maybe you are weighing 45 kilograms. So that should raise an alarm, or maybe a female, maybe in your 40s and you're weighing 35 kgs. And others, it could be as bad as you're maybe 20 and you're weighing 20 kilograms. And you literally are so happy about it, and you still feel that you're extremely overweight. And that is one of the things that stands out. So the person literally refuses to eat, or they eat enough to just stay alive. And the thing with anorexia is that it elicits, you're just eating to stay alive. For example, a person can eat an apple and stay with that apple in the system for 2 days. You might be looking at foods and you were like, okay, this food is going to make me add weight, but in real sense, you're just skin and bones. You're just eating enough to stay alive. And that is really common. And the most worrying thing is that it's very common in females. So there's an aspect of gender. Most eating disorders, we can attribute them to females. And it's because there's so much pressure, the ideal woman, the ideal shape. You know, you need to look good to maybe attract someone. You know, body type, body shape has been linked to attracting someone and getting a spouse even. So it cuts across, the nail sinks into lip. It sees more than meets the eye. And I mentioned something in called bulimia. Bulimia is whereby the person or the individual tends to eat, and maybe they can eat too much, purging, in this case, binge eating. They will eat lots and lots of food, and immediately they finish eating the food, they run to the loo, or rather, they run to the bathroom, they induce vomiting. So they will induce vomiting because they're feeling guilty, they've eaten too much, and they want to maintain the perfect ideal body weight. And now the thing that stands out in bulimia is that induced vomiting. You induce nausea. Some use laxatives, medication to induce vomiting if the finger method does not work for them. So the knuckles will be sort of there'll be calluses on the knuckles because of doing this too much. And the laxative, of course, and then the physical things that go unnoticed, or rather, before you catch them in bulimia, it will have been, the damage would have already been done, especially the erosion of the enamel of the teeth. Because when you regurgitate the food, when you puke, the HCl, the acid in the stomach that is normally produced in the stomach, comes also with the food, and it corrodes the enamel of the teeth. So you'll also have dental issues, and something that you're trying to minimize, and becomes a bit catastrophic. So we see that you now have a physical problem as much as you have a psychological problem. And I mentioned PICA. PICA is really interesting because it cuts across different age groups. We have infants, we have early childhood, we have now adolescents and early adulthood, and now the older generation, which is less severe in the older generations. What happens in PICA is that we see kids picking up small things, and we find that it's really cute because that's how kids explore and learn about the environment. They're curious. They're like, what is this? Is this a remote? Okay, they don't know it's a remote. They're like, okay, I'm trying to eat this. If it's edible, then it means that I'm going to survive. Kids, their sensational, the motivation or behind them eating lots of things apart from exploring the environment is just a survival instinct to keep themselves nourished. So they explore their environment by that. So we find that sometimes you find a baby who has small stones, and they normally lodge the things in between the two teeth. When they have 4 teeth, they normally hide that thing in between the teeth. So if you're not careful, your baby might be just coins. And PICA literally just means that you eat non-nutritive, non-food substances. So people might ingest chalk, might ingest stones, pebbles, matchsticks, very crazy things. And I remember as a child, someone would go to the ER, and maybe someone would fall sick, and then they'd say the report would be, oh, they removed nails, threads, needles within the person's stomach, and rocks, and they'll be like, any person who does not know what PICA is, someone would go on and say, okay, guys, I think this person might have been bewitched. How did those things even get into their system? So there's an aspect of misconceptions and myths and witchcraft in our culture is very much plays a key role in what we do, or rather in our day-to-day lives. And there's the classic example of last year, the 2 sisters who were eating soap. And these were young adolescent girls. They were eating soap, and they even made the news. And everyone was like, how are they able to eat soap? It was such an interesting topic. But if there was awareness, people would have known that this is PICA. And PICA is common in those ages, and also in pregnant women as well. You find that someone who's pregnant, they crave the classic chalk, talcum powder. Mwingine anataka kunusa mafuta ya petroli, and others will literally eat soil. So, and those are the common types you have, especially within Kenya. And the classic example of PICA is those 2 girls. Yeah.
Right. I'm wondering, Lucy, is there like a nutrition deficiency, especially for individuals with PICA?
Yeah, for PICA, it indicates a certain nutrient deficiency, especially
Mm-hmm.
the iron. You find that most pregnant moms, they crave for
Mm-hmm.
things like the stones. It indicates, even for the kids, it indicates that there is a deficiency of a certain nutrient. And most commonly, it's the iron.
All right. Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm laughing because I used to think that all pregnant women must eat something weird, you know. And yeah, so when it was my turn, I really tried to figure out what was my weird thing. So I tried stones. I was like, how do people do? How? I tried to look for my weird thing. It didn't work. But it's good to hear from this conversation that it's either one, you really have like an actual illness, or it could be that you have some form of deficiency. So that is why you're trying to replace. Lucy, another thing that I would like you to also comment on into this is the avoidant food intake as a disorder. What's your opinion on it?
Avoidant comes across when a person just does not prefer any particular food,
Mm-hmm.
not that they're allergic,
Mm,
but they just avoid the food completely. They don't prefer taking the food. It's just a preference of a
mm,
certain food that you don't want to eat that food. Not that you are
mm,
allergic, you just don't like it. Maybe it could
yeah.
maybe previous maybe experience, like for me, the pumpkins. I'm not allergic to
Yeah.
them. I don't react to them, but maybe I ate maybe one that was not sweet, so I just avoid the pumpkin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just you don't
Absolutely.
prefer certain food.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. For the adults in this conversation, if there are some specific food that you avoid, or even that you restrict yourself from certain food intake, please don't really worry. It could be just a choice. However, if it starts causing you dysfunction in other areas of your life, then you could have actually developed the disorder. However, the disorder is usually diagnosed for infancy and toddlers. I mean, like below 7 years, and usually it also it kind of goes, it goes away on its own. And the marker here is that if it doesn't go away, it can actually cause a child like severe malnutrition that can be fatal. So if you're a parent and you're watching this conversation and your child is just really, really stubborn, they don't like certain intake of certain specific foods, they could be suffering from the avoidant or restrictive food intake. And I would say just figure out what is it that they like to eat, and feed them that state. And before we move on also from the disorders, there is also ruminating. I don't know, I've never really come across like somebody who ruminates, but I know it's there. But this is basically, it's picked from what ruminants do. So this is a disorder whereby it presents with the individual, uh, what do I say? The food coming back to your throat and then chewing it again, like chewing cud, like the way animals chew
Yeah.
cud,
Yeah.
and then long after you have eaten, and then now you swallow it again. So believe it or not, that is out there. And something else that was interesting that I came across, it's not actually a clinical diagnosis, but it was a night eating syndrome. Just go and read about night eating syndrome. So these are just people who wake up at night, fridge, and binge in the middle of the night. I'm sure a lot of us probably do that from one time to another. And remember, Kate also talked about stress. So usually when you have stress, some of these things can happen. Don't worry about that. To Lucy on this panel, we can't allow you to be on this panel if we don't ask you some of this. There is a big obsession on keto diet. There is a big obsession on intermittent fasting. I'm just wondering, what are the implications of that, from a nutritionist perspective?
Okay, I won't fight the keto diet and the intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Yes, they are intermittent fasting, but if you do it the correct way. For example, when you are on that phase of intermittent fasting, what are you doing? Are you staying hydrated? Because again, you're not fasting to cause any other maybe medical conditions. So are you doing it the right way? For example, when you are fasting, maybe it's 16 hours or 8 hours, you should stay hydrated in that phase. Then after that phase, how are you breaking the phase? You can't maybe you stayed for 16 hours without having any meal, then your first meal is it's a mountain of food. So know how to break the phase. You can have a light meal. You can have a smoothie before taking your main meal. And also if you're doing intermittent fasting in cases of maybe weight loss, there's no point of fasting then engaging in unhealthy eating habits, because the results zitakuwa tu zero. It's a zero result. So know how to do the intermittent fasting and seek guidance. If you don't know how to do it, how to break it, and how to go about it, please seek help from a medical personnel or a nutritionist. So intermittent fasting, yes, it's good, but it's beneficial when you know how you are doing it.
Right. So, Lucy, are you trying to tell us that there is a wrong way to do it that can harm you?
Yes.
Right. How?
Maybe, let's say you fasted for maybe the 16 hours. Then for all those hours, you've not maybe even taken any zero-calorie diet or fluid like coffee or water. That's me. And when you approach it immediately with, sorry?
I lost you for a moment.
Okay, I was saying when you fasted, for example, for the 8 hours, that is dry fast, without taking either coffee, water, or anything zero calorie, then you break the cycle with a heavy meal. That means your gut was not prepared for any meal. And that can cause some few problems. So it's always good, even if you are fasting, keep your gut ready and healthy by drinking water or anything zero calorie. Yes.
All right. I'm just wondering, also out of curiosity, and to anybody who is going to come across this conversation, are there certain underlying conditions that one could have that then they should not engage in intermittent fasting?
Yeah, some like the hyperacidity.
So if you have hyperacidity, that's a no-no for you.
The peptic ulcers disease, the PUD. I think those are the most common, and also for those cases of diabetes.
Right.
You don't want
cases of diabetes,
your sugars to go extremely low. And also for the pregnant moms, keep yourself with energy. You don't have to do the intermittent fasting.
All right. Thank you so much, Lucy, for that. And the challenge here is just don't follow a trend just because you've seen the trend. I mean, try and figure out, first of all, is this necessary for me? How will it benefit me? How does it affect me? Am I going to, predispose myself to a more dangerous space by, doing this thing that I think is trendy or cool, that is or that is going to make me slimmer, or whatever it is. Just be sure, do it the right way, ensure you don't have underlying conditions that could make it worse for you. What about the keto diet?
Yeah,
or basically the diet.
For the keto diet, it's one that recommends low carbohydrates, high healthy fats and proteins. Yes, it's the ideal way of eating, but it becomes a problem when you go maybe extreme of avoiding the carbohydrates. Because you find most of the people adopting the keto diet, they are avoiding the carbohydrates like completely. You can't do without the carbohydrate, because at the end of the day, you need your energy. And the carbohydrates are the energy giving foods. Yes. So if you go for the keto diet, please make sure you incorporate the carbohydrates, the complex ones. Then choose the healthy and the protein, but don't cut completely one certain food group.
Wow, thank you, Lucy, for that. And thank you for allowing me to put you on the spot. I mean, these are very necessary conversations. And the live discussions we have here is also to ensure that we just get to the realness of the issues on the ground in regards to what is happening, so that we can be able to give the right information to everyone. So if you're out there, you have jumped onto the keto diet, kindly remember that your body needs energy. Your body needs energy. All right. So if you starve yourself completely, having any form of calories, then you will also start feeling lethargic, because that's what energy is from. And that also goes into preventing you from being able to be creative or to be motivated or just to do the daily things that you're used to doing. Then that's now another way that frustration also crops in, because you're trying to engage in this thing because you want certain results, but then you're losing on the other hand. Kate, let's go to you. Please highlight to us the relationship between mental health and these eating disorders that we have been talking about. In the 40 minutes or so.
Yes. So this is, we say it's an illness, it's a mental illness, and we say there is a very close connection. It's a mental illness, and what warrants it for that is stress. We have stress, number one. And stress, literally, there's a lot that goes on. When you say the word stress, a physiologist and a psychologist would just sit down and take notes from one another, because it literally means tipping over your body physically, because your mind literally is your, what can I say, the engine. It's the engine that drives the body. So if your engine is non-functional, if your engine it's maybe rusty, you need to service it. And if you have a lot of stress, if you're stressing your engine, maybe you're literally you're forcing a car that does not have 4x4 to go the extra mile, then something is bound to break. So stress levels, we can have an extreme high where you overeat to compensate for maybe the feelings that you're feeling, maybe the anxiety. There's something that comes from the stress. We have anxiety, and anxiety literally is just general over worrying of things. You over worry and you overthink of a lot of things. So we have general anxiety, and also we have general anxiety and social anxiety. Because one thing that stands out with binge eaters, the ones who eat a lot, there's some specific characteristics that stand out when you talk about binge eating. Sometimes you eat extremely rapidly. Unakula mbio. You're like, is that person chewing that githeri, that ugali? So someone will feel self-conscious and anxious when they want to eat in public, because they know I'm about to binge eat. And someone will eat, so there's the rapid consumption of food. Unakula extremely fast. It's like you're having a portion meal in your mind or in your mouth, and you will want to hide this. So there's anxiety that accompanies that. Or if you're eating just one apple for 2 days, you will eat in secret. You'll tend to be anxious. So anxiety really crops up apart from stress. And then now there's the depression. If your mood, if your hormones, because depression, literally, we have a lot of hormones in play. We have a lot of chemicals, neurotransmitters in play behind the curtains of depression. There's the medical aspect of it. And now the negative thinking. You're conscious, you're very subconscious, the feelings of guilt. You feel like Did I just devour ugali that was supposed to feed 50 people in one sitting? You start feeling bad. You're like, I'm struggling with weight. I need to put off my weight. Maybe the doctor warned you, keep off your favorite meal, and you're like, no, I can't. So you eat at one go, or you tend to avoid. When you tend to avoid a certain specific type of food, or you restrict yourself so much, you feel depressed. You're like, oh my God, you feel hopeless. Will I ever have been restricted? Or maybe someone is allergic and they're told, keep off from this food and it's your favorite food. You start becoming depressed. You're like, I really want to eat this. Be that as it may, people are very different. And then we have something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is another thing that crops up. Maybe you might have choked, unawainyongwa na mfupa, and the culprit in this is fish. Sometimes you eat the small fish, and maybe you didn't notice there was a bone you swallowed, and maybe it got lodged in between your throat, and you struggled. Maybe it gave you a medical condition, you had to go to the ER, you had to seek mental health aid, and it literally traumatized you. So you literally avoid. If you see anything that resembles, anything that is the color of the fish that choked you, you tend to have trauma. Or the kids who used to be beaten so much to eat, unakuta mtoto, they take some food, they throw it under the dining table, or they throw the food. Some kids have the tendency, I have a friend who has children who hide bread. So in their rooms, they hide bread under the mattress. In your kitanda, there's bread in the laundry basket. So you can imagine, as the mother, you're going to do general cleaning, unapatana na mikate. So there's the mold. And, as a mother, instead of sitting down with the kid, the first thing you do, you go into African mother mode. You beat them up properly, and then you listen to them later. So the kids might develop PTSD trauma, might have a traumatic experience anytime anaona mkate or anything that resembles bread, like scones, any bread food, bread type food, bread like food. They may be feeling, we cannot eat wheat products. I don't like bread. So that person literally, unakuta eventually it boils down, they have something against starch, they become vegan, they become maybe they go for specific foods they avoid. So there's trauma. And then we have OCD. OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. You're compelled to doing certain activities, they're compulsions. You can't resist them. You can't say no. You have literally no control. In the case of binge eaters, in the case of pica. And what happens mostly in pica is that it tends to, aside from being witnessed in children or rather being manifested in children, people with intellectual disabilities like autistic or people with Down syndrome or individuals with Down syndrome, they tend to have pica or the rumination type of eating disorder. So you have to really be vigilant and you have to really surveil them, so that because the mental faculties sometimes are hindered. So the decision or the judgment to make a call that this is non-edible and non-nutritive may not be there. You need to be there constantly. And we have something like substance use disorder that might crop up from this. If someone is feeling maybe that depression because maybe you're allergic to so many types of foods, unakuta mtu anakuambia, I don't eat this. The people who used to eat special food diets while we were in high school, or the rest of us were eating maram, they used to eat maybe cabbages, potatoes, you look at them and they're like, but when all is said and done, if you could ask them, hey, would you like to eat this? That imagine I would like to eat nyama choma. I just want to feel how you guys are feeling, but I can't. So you find that you are at risk of developing substance use disorder. To cope with this, or the person who is under a lot of pressure from society to have a certain body type, you feel that the pressure is so high, maybe you have cut down the carbs, you have gone into keto diet, literally full throttle, and instead of losing that weight as a lady, you are adding weight, and it does not make sense to you. You've added weight, and maybe by 10 kilos you have bought that corset, and it's really, you can't breathe the whole day. You are angry because there's something that is constricting your rib cage. You have to fit a certain ideal body type. So this pressure to belong, it predisposes you to getting depression, and a coping mechanism too for you to escape reality. You're maybe hanging out with your girlfriends. You want to go to that swimming event. There's an event, a beach party, a pool party, and you're wearing that two-piece, and your stomach is whispering, or rather shouting, "Hello, how are you?" You're like, where do I tuck this in? You don't have money for liposuction, maybe. You don't have money for cool sculpting. There's a lot of surgeries, very invasive surgeries that are cropping up every other day, and ladies are putting themselves on the line. There's a model who's popular on Instagram. She wanted to look like a certain personality type, and she went under the knife 12 times. The 12th time, she succumbed to her wounds and died. So you see, there's so much pressure. She's not the only one. She went on a strict diet, but she's not achieving the desired body results. So she becomes depressed. You start drinking, you start taking alcohol, you start doing drugs and shooting up to escape the reality that you're not fitting in, you're not able to belong. And then there's the issue of low self-esteem. You walk around, you feel so inadequate. You start wearing clothes, you cover up so much, and your clothing are not in relation to the weather or the climate of the day or the event. You find that you're going to the office, you have very many pieces of clothing. You're literally hiding your body. You are irritable. Your state of mind, you're always angry because your body is not doing what it's supposed to do, and you're blaming it on the food, especially if you binge eat. You literally become bulimic. And individuals who have or they were suffering from bulimia, the thing that stands out that is that makes bulimia different from anorexia is the person might not be underweight. Most of the times they're not underweight. They are normal weight or actually overweight, but they're literally struggling with this food and controlling the food. So those are some of the mental. This is how important food is, and food literally is medicine. When you're feeling so irritable and hungry, there's a saying that goes like this: a hungry man is an angry man. So the issue of irritability, when you're most of the cases when you're hungry, you tend to have a very limited control to many people. Someone might call you, and you go off at them because you're hungry. But when you eat, you come to your senses. You come to and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do? What have I just done? I think I spoke badly to someone. So that's how important food is. Food is really important. It's literally medicine in its own. So if you're not careful, some of these mental, literally these eating disorders may predispose you, may make you put you at a risk of developing depression, substance use disorder. We might be compelled to be doing certain things that are not that may interfere with your mental well-being in general. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kate, for that. Please mute both of you just for a second. All right. Thank you, Kate, for that. And you've heard it from the expert that absolutely there's a relationship between eating disorders and mental health. And what I loved about some of the examples Kate is giving is just highlighting that sometimes you could have the eating disorder first and then now start developing other things that also come into play, like you indulging in substances or the guilt because of what is happening and what is going on within you, or even the shame and the stigma to talk about it. Or you could be experiencing certain stressors or depression and then develop an eating disorder. But I really like the example of that you have used for PTSD, because I know the African culture where we beat children because they don't eat. Like I really don't understand that. I truly believe that you cannot lie to hunger. It's like an automatic body process. So this child will eat. I mean, they will still eat at some point. They just don't want to eat at that moment. And I've seen cases where a child is beaten, they are throwing up, they are forced to eat, and then they are throwing up, and it's just a whole mess and very traumatizing to that child. And if you're watching this and you're doing that, please stop. you could be predisposing this person to a future eating disorder. So thank you so much, Kate, for bringing that, and also bringing into the perspective of the hormonal imbalances and emotions. And I loved you. I know you did highlight. I don't know whether it was you or Kate, that women are more predisposed to eating disorders. I'm just wondering. It's true. Probably women are more predisposed to eating disorders. Are there men who also suffer from eating disorders? Because men also go through the pressure of, men also have a body type, an ideal media, body types that they strive, to get there, at least some. So I'm wondering, do they also end up suffering from disorders? I don't know. What's your opinion, Lucy, on that?
Yeah, they do, but women nisi tunaafektiwa sana because too much pressure for us women, but even yes for men, because kuna hii we want to have all those parts, na hizo parts
Yes.
unataka zionekane, so you find yourself forever lifting weights, gym 6 to 6, you just want to have that ideal weight, the ideal weight. So yet even in men, the eating disorders and other symptoms, yes, they are there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think it's very important that we don't assume that it's just women who really undergo body shaming and the pressure, but men as well. And especially today, I think today there are also a lot more men who are really, really more conscious of how they look, what they wear, the kind of image depend, as in just on look and feel. And I've seen also a lot of cases where the self-esteem is compromised because of that, and also other health issues. I have had cases of people who specifically smoke because cigarettes curbs hunger, apparently. I don't know if that is factual. Yes, so they go out specifically to do that because apparently it will curb appetite, yes, and that ultimately might make them leaner or not eat. So you can imagine with those kind of myths out there, how many other young people are likely to get into some of these really, really dangerous coping mechanisms in order to look a certain kind of way. So this is really it's a real life pressure. Sorry. And I'm just wondering, for Kate, is there therapy for people with eating disorders? Would you say that there is a tailor-made therapy for people with eating disorders that is different? Because I'm sure somebody who is watching this conversation is wondering, so the people with eating disorders, as in how are they treated, and is it different than somebody who is going either through grief or has depression or stress? Yeah, please shed some light into that.
Yes, there is hope for the individuals suffering from eating disorders. Like I said, it's a joint it's a joint effort. We have to have a physician to know the extent of damage that the eating disorder has caused to this individual, especially for PICA, for the ones who ruminate. There's a lot of reflux, there's a lot of gastrointestinal activities that happen, and a lot of the food tract being exposed to the chemicals. It gets eroded over time. Ulcers are there, they develop peptic ulcers, like Lucy said. So we will have medication first and foremost, and then we will have now therapy, where we have the most common, especially for because eating disorders don't discriminate. They don't pick any culture. They don't pick any specific individual. It cuts across everyone, African, from the western part of the continents or of the world to Africa, and anyone can develop them. So we have the first and foremost something we call cognitive behavioral therapy, whereby how you think influences how you feel, or rather how you feel influences how you think, and these two will work in in influencing how you behave at the end of the day. So that is the mother of them all, and it's broken down. It's really broad. It's broken down. We will have to have family based treatment, whereby this individual who has an eating disorder, and most of them are, the eating disorders crop up from when someone is really young as even 3 years old. So you'll have to equip their parent. The family have to be psychoeducated. How do you support? How do you deal with this? And how are you feeling about your loved one having an eating disorder? Sometimes there might be that guilt that when did this happen, or like that mother who's been forcing the child, especially Uji, to down that porridge. They puke it up and then they down it again, and you find like the person hates liquidy substances, slimy foods. I'm not naming names, Gavani. And how do you offer support to these parents to deal with these people? So we have the cognitive, it comes in with the family-based therapy. And then for someone who has rumination and pica and rumination, they are dealt with a bit differently. We have something called aversive therapy, whereby yes, we have aversion therapy, whereby someone who literally eats this nutritive, non-ingestible substances, the foods, they are shown, like, or rather, they are literally taught how this thing is supposed to function. If it's a matchstick, if it's a chalk is gotten from this place. It's mined. This is something that comes from the ground. You're not supposed to be eating it. The matchstick is made like this and this. You're not supposed to be eating it. This is how it's supposed to be used. Trying to curb that. And then we have something called cognitive remediation therapy. Literally, this targets psychosocial functioning. This person maybe has anxiety. They can't eat in front of people because they feel like maybe they're too big. In the case of anorexia nervosa, they are taught socially, or rather there's that psychosocial education. You have to know that nobody's literally looking at you when you're eating. No one has an issue with how fast you're eating your food. So it's like literally teaching someone how to talk, or rather a baby how to walk. We have dialectical behavior therapy, we call it DBT. We have to teach the person how to be mindful, how to be in the now, how to literally go for help when you notice these things. When you have to be mindful and keep track, and when you see these symptoms cropping up, what's that thing, you need to speak up, what is that thing that you can do? And then we have CBT, a specific one we call, or rather, psychotherapy, talking about it. There is power in talking. We have a saying that says that a problem shared is a problem half solved. And psychotherapy literally offers this platform. If I'm able to see that, okay, to pick out that I have an eating disorder, I should not feel that stigma. I should not stigmatize myself, because people tend to blame themselves. When did this happen? How did I get here? But we need to come to the realization that seeking help is really, really key, and it's really important. And this is how basically we have that therapy that is tailor-made for eating disorders, that is quite different from how you're going to deal with someone who's dealing with maybe, or other who's suffering from PTSD, suffering from depression, or maybe schizophrenia.
Wow, thank you, Kate, for that. And I think you've highlighted everything, and I really don't want to repeat anything that you have said. But just allow me to emphasize on stigma. In all form of stigma and how we look at it, self-stigma is the worst of it. So once you recognize that I have a problem, and you acknowledge that to yourself, then what will prevent you from being able to seek help is that self-stigma. Because you're the person who begins with, I don't want to be seen going for therapy. I don't want to admit to myself, what will people say about me? Yeah. So self-stigma is actually the worst part of stigma itself, before you even look at the social part of it. There are a few questions from Facebook, and please just allow me to read this. This lady is saying that she always licks salt while eating to avoid vomiting. And then she's also said, my hubby and two daughters are so poor in feeding. I'm always on multivitamin. We are so tired. They don't know what to do anymore. So I think there are two parts of this question here. There is the fact that she says that she always has to lick salt because to avoid vomiting while eating. I don't know what's your opinion on that, Lucy? And yeah, and what can they do about the poor feeding habits that they have generally as a family?
I think for licking salt, maybe she's trying to avoid the nausea. But
Yeah.
also, when you are licking maybe too much salt when eating, you are taking in a lot of sodium. Remember, you've cooked your food with salt. That's already sodium. Then you are licking the salt. That means you have too much sodium in your body, predisposing yourself to a range of maybe cardiovascular diseases like the hypertension, which is related to high sodium foods. So you can maybe, if you're avoiding vomiting while eating, I can advise you try to take small but frequent meals. You don't have to you don't have to sit ukule chakula yote at the same time. You can choose to eat small but frequently. With the salt, maybe it's working for you, but it's not healthy.
Wow, thank you for that, and thank you, Lucy, for bringing that to my attention. It's just really reminded me. I don't know whether it's an African or Kenyan culture where we believe and swear by only 3 times to eat in our whole day: morning, lunchtime, and evening. I mean, guys, it doesn't have to, you're actually supposed to have like 6 portions, right? Or even 7 portions, like small throughout the day. This thing of you have to sit down and have a whole mlima so that you feel like that was lunch. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but you've heard it in regards to this question. It could be working for you, the licking of the salt to avoid nausea. That actually works. However, you are increasing sodium, and that also predisposes you to other later illnesses, cardiovascular, you've heard, and hypertension that comes into place. There's another question. There was also a question of what can they do as a family because they have poor eating habits generally. What's your advice on that?
Maybe they try to be diverse, because when you stick to one particular food, it gets boring. Especially for the kids, you have to be diverse. Even for the elders, when you cook ugali for dinner, ugali tomorrow for dinner, it's inakuwa too boring. So they can try to be diverse and try other foods, and maybe that way they can improve their eating.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, right. I like that. Very good advice. You've heard it. Just, have different types of food and variety. I could agree with that. If you cook for me cereals every day, no, apana. Yes. There's another question. I'm gonna direct this to Kate. This is from our Facebook page as well. When we realize we tend to overeat when emotional, how do we deal with that? I really like this question. Yeah, thank you for displaying that for me. Yes. Hi. So my question is, when we realize we tend to overeat when emotional, how do we deal?
Yeah, okay. I said we have something called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. This literally addresses your emotions, how your emotions act as a will, or rather they act to affect how you behave in the long run. So basically, let me just say in layman terms, CBT basically is teaching us how to train our minds to be stronger than our emotion. If you're an emotional eater, you need to realize your triggers, your emotional triggers. Okay, in which emotional state do you tend to overeat? When you're excited, Some people get too excited and they will eat anything that is on their way. When you're really sad, you find that you tend to eat. And in this case, sit down and just do like a self audit. Try and look at the situation, what triggers you, which emotional state triggers you to overeat. When you realize the culprit, the emotional state culprit, then from there you can be able to address this issue. You can be able to put in measures. We now bring in the aspect of being mindful of how you can go about this. I've realized I normally tend to overeat when I'm extremely happy. So what do? I can do a breathing exercise technique, something as simple as that. And just sit down, you do 3 deep breaths. You hold for it's four. You breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds. Literally try and calm yourself down, because if it's an extreme high or if it's an extreme low, you need to bring it at an equilibrium. If I isolated the trigger itself, and then now you tend to look at your surrounding, be mindful, be in touch, try and find something else to do other than that. An occupation, a hobby that you enjoy doing. What do you enjoy doing when you're by yourself? Or take your phone. A trigger sometimes of that emotional state that you're in could be a craving in itself. You can take your phone and call up a friend, and you'll realize that within 20, 15 minutes, that bout of feeling, that emotion might pass. Look for something that will change, or that will shift your mind from that emotional state that you're in. If you're really sad, that's why it's really important to have a friend you can call. That's why it's really important to have someone you can turn to. Like I know of Chiromo Hospital Group, they have a toll-free number. You can call. That's a really good example. You can call their toll-free number, get and seek help, and talk to someone absolutely free. You'll be assisted in that time that you tend to do that, and enroll yourself to physical exercises. People nowadays tend to overlook the power that physical exercise and keeping fit, or rather through exercise, the power that it has when it comes to battling depression, when it comes to battling any mood disorder. When you get to being physically active, you tend to, the physical activity, the energy that is being exerted when you're doing a physical activity, you will divert that energy from your emotional state to the physical, to your physical faculties. So you'll find that, okay, fine, you're feeling a bit low, get up, go for a walk. You might be feeling a bit lethargic, so I wouldn't advise that you go to a swimming pool and swim, or take a bicycle and ride, but do something as simple as just go for a walk. Don't sit, or rather close yourself up and tend to eat and really think about the problem. You can choose that option, go for a walk, go on Facebook, or not Facebook, or go online, look for that toll-free number for seeking professional help. Call in, talk to an expert, and you've identified this trigger. This emotion is your trigger normally. So if you find yourself that you're slipping into anger, you're slipping into maybe sadness, extreme sadness, you can maybe have these things in place. Something as simple as going for a walk will really lift up your moods. Calling up a friend, seeking help, or going to the gym when you're so excited and you have that energy, you feel like you can eat ugali for 50 people. Use that energy, take that energy and do something productive and healthy. Run to the gym, go for a swim, or just jog around your neighborhood. Something as simple as that. Change your mind, like distract yourself positively. Yes, that's what I can advise.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kate, for that. Yeah, really amazing, and it's true. I like. I mean, what people don't know is that the same effect that food gives you, when you're under stress and you're trying to eat, you can still get that same feeling, or that release of dopamine when you exercise. Yet exercising is more effective. We're not even talking about gym. Just like going for a walk is something that is very important, or even cleaning from top to bottom in your house. But bottom line, be able to identify your triggers, be able to highlight what are the times When do I eat a lot, or when do I not eat? Is it when I'm emotional? Is it when I'm too happy? Is it when I'm anxious? Is it when I can't sleep? Just be able to do that. If you're journaling, that could also help you, because you can go back and look at what my patterns or what your patterns have been. Thank you so much, Kate, for that. And thank you for being in this panel and giving us such wonderful, wonderful information. Thank you, Lucy, as well. I don't know, Lucy, do you have any last words? I know we are way out of time and I want to end this conversation. Any last words from you, Lucy Chege?
I think my last remarks is let's eat healthy, because as it said, we are what we eat. So choose to eat healthy. And if you discover or realize that you have an eating disorder, please reach out for help. Yes.
Please reach out for help. There is no shame. There is no shame in reaching out for help. Thank you so much, Lucy. It was really a pleasure having you on this panel. An expert of your caliber as well. To be here, we don't really take it for granted. And we thank you so much as Chiromo Hospital Group for doing this for us, and even on the chat as well. Thank you to everybody who watched this conversation live. I have seen that people have shared this conversation on their own personal platforms. I have seen the messages that say this was a very educative conversation. I have seen the comment from the person who highlighted that there was a girl who swallowed a razor blade in high school, and now this is when it's hitting her. There was definitely a serious problem with that person. I'm really glad that in one way or another we can be able to highlight some of these really detrimental societal issues that are not talked about right here on Chiromo Hospital Group live panel conversations. My last words were eat good, feel good. As simple as that. Kwaherini, everyone. Happy Thursday.